Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to go ahead and do part 2 of the Guitar Man portrait series. And we're going to go ahead and start adding some color to the portrait. And the app that we're going to be using is Corel Painter 2020 for Windows. And if you're interested in following along with traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the paint, brushes, and the canvas that I use. And so here I want to go ahead and add in the background. And you can actually add in the background first if you're following along traditionally and then trace the image off on top of it. Or you can go ahead and just sketch the image in first and paint around it. And so this is kind of what I'm doing here, but I am keeping the drawing on a separate layer. And you want to do this so that, you don't lose your original drawing and you don't get too far off track with your painting. And so I wanted to use kind of a dark blue background and have a little bit of some light around the guitarist. And so I'm using ultramarine blue colors and phthalo blue and a little bit of some aqua colors. And if you're following along traditionally with your acrylics or oils, they would be those color names. And then I kind of wanted to blend them. And if you're following along traditionally, you would use your white acrylic gesso to sort of blend them together before they dry. And here I'm trying to find some good blending brushes. And I'm using the opaque acrylic brush. I tried several different ones before I decided that the Just Add Water and the, what's the other one? The Grainy Water and Diffuse Blur, those are my favorite blenders because they just seem to work kind of like natural acrylics in this program. So I was trying out Grainy Oils, Jitter, and Grainy Real Bristle Oils, and they're good for giving you kind of a painterly look. But if you want it a little bit smoother, you go back to the Just Add Water or Grainy Water. And I'm using the Detail Opaque brush and acrylics. That one and Real Long Bristle are some of my favorite brushes for the acrylic brushes. And here I'm just hitting Just Add Water. And you can use several different controls to change the size of your brushes. There's one in the taskbar at the top. There's also one in the taskbar on the side. Or you can use keyboard shortcuts. There's also keyboard shortcuts. And this is the on-screen keyboard. And here I'm just kind of merging the layers. And in Corel Painter, you can't just say drop layers because that will merge everything to the canvas. So you have to hit the Shift key and select the layers you want to combine, and then hit Collapse Layers, and then it will combine them together instead of throwing them all the way down to the bottom canvas layer. In other programs, you can just drop to the bottom layer, but Corel Painter has a different system, so you have to do it that way. And I'm trying to smooth the background out here, and I've got the Just Add Water, and that seems to be working pretty good. And I kind of want the background to look a little bit painterly, so I don't mind if there's brush strokes showing, because we're gonna kind of give it just a little bit of some painterly look to it. It doesn't have to be real smooth. You can make it real smooth if you want to, but I just want kind of a rough stroke look behind him. And so I'm just kind of messing around with the Real Long Bristle here, and I've decided it'll work well for the jeans. You want the jeans to look kind of faded, and so if you're following along traditionally, you would use ultramarine blue and probably phthalo blue, and just kind of mix white acrylic gesso with them. And that'll give you kind of the faded look of the jeans. And I also want his legs to kind of just fade out into the edges. I don't want real big details on the jeans, because we kind of want the face and the guitar area to be the focal point of the portrait. So his jeans and the legs there, they just kind of need to fade out, and I'll be fading them out even more towards the end of the video. And then I'm using kind of a dark underpainting for the vest. The vest is probably black, but since I've exposed it, you can see the blue highlights. I've overexposed the photo there so that I can see all the details and the wrinkles and things. And then the hat is black, so I'm just kind of putting the shape of the hat there. You can throw in a little bit of blue into your black if you're following along traditionally, just to keep it from getting real flat, but we will be adding highlights to it anyway. And then I've got a light blue underpainting for the shirt, and that just helps have some shadow color there, because you're going to add even lighter highlights. So you start with a light blue or purple underpainting on the shirt there, and that will help you show the wrinkles later on. And then I'm working on his face, and the face is going to be oranges and browns. And if you're following along traditionally, you would use yellows and reds to make the skin color. And so here I'm trying to get it where I can zoom in on his face, and you can use the navigator to zoom in on things, or you can just use the zoom controls, but that one seems to be the quickest. And you can also position your canvas in Corel Painter where you want it. So here I'm just kind of working close up, and again, if you're following along traditionally and you want a darker brown color, you can use phthalo yellow green and alizarin crimson, and then just add degrees of white acrylic gesso, and that will give you the degrees of browns and lighter oranges and pinks, just depending on how much green or how much red, alizarin crimson that you add into it. And you can use cadmium red light, cadmium yellow light, just any variation of reds and yellows. And then the shadows can be burnt umber, burnt sienna, add some blues into the shadows. You can add some greens. Here I'm using kind of a burnt sienna, burnt umber, if you're following along with your acrylic colors. And just trying to get the places that have highlights. So just like with clouds, there's on people's faces, there's pockets of dark and light. On the end of the nose, it's lighter. On the chin, it's lighter. On the cheekbones, it's lighter, depending on how the light hits the planes of the face here. And so I'm just kind of adding dark spots for the eyes right now. And we're just adding the general shadows to the face. So you don't want big details right now, so don't freak out if it looks deformed or like a monster, because this is just part of the process. It's not going to look perfect right off the bat. You're going to have to build it up and model it like clay. It's kind of like clay. And so here I'm just kind of adding a little bit of some gray for the hair. And I'm using the real long bristle in Corel Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, for the big places like the vest and things, you can use a number 8 bristle brush, and then you will get smaller and smaller with your brushes, and maybe use for more details a number 6 round, or you might use a filbert brush for the curves on the face, a number 6 filbert brush. Filbert brushes have round edges on them. But we're still kind of filling in the big areas right now. And this is called the underpainting, where you do the first layer of paint. And so with acrylic, it will then dry. And with oils, you may have to wait or just try to blend it if you want to. You can kind of blend some of it all at once with the oils, but with the technique that I'm doing, you kind of have to let the layers dry in between. And that's why I like acrylics, because they dry within a matter of minutes and not a week. So I'm working on the neck here, working on the collar, adding a little bit more black to the vest, and working on the shoulders here and the sleeve of his shirt. And just kind of adding a little bit more colors. And it doesn't matter if the colors don't exactly match, because as you can see in the photo reference, there's blacks and blues. I mean, it's going to look black. But if you want to add a little bit of some folds and some detail there, then you're going to have to use some blue colors to bring out the folds and the detail in the vest. And so you'd use ultramarine blues mixed with black. Add a little bit of purple in there to darken it down, but you don't want it to look flat. And then here I'm just working a little bit more on the shape of the eyes and the face, and then I want to underpaint the guitar. So we're going to paint the first layer with maybe a yellow ochre and burnt sienna. If you're following along with your acrylic colors, you just want kind of a yellowish brown there, because his guitar has some red brown look in it and some yellow brown, so you want to go ahead and just kind of add that there. I'm using the acrylic, the opaque acrylic with Corel Painter, and you want to go ahead and just kind of smooth that out and smear them together and kind of try to give a little bit of a wood grain, but we'll work on that later on using the real long bristle. And in here I want to go ahead and start adding the black parts to the guitar here, and you want to go ahead and work around the edges and just try to get those curved and kind of straight. You want to make the edge of the guitar straight, and you're going to make the handle of the guitar straight, and just kind of try to keep all the parts of the guitar lined up together, including the handle on the end. And it's going to go out a little bit at an angle because he's holding the guitar down a little bit. He's resting his hand on the neck of the guitar. And I'm adding a little bit of white on the edge because that's going to be the decoration on the outside of the guitar. So this is the end of part 2 of Guitar Man portrait, and in part 3 we're going to be adding more detail onto the face and trying to get the face more refined. So if you want to see that, then hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.